been staring into the eyes of hell, man.
It'll be all right. I'll be right back.
No, you won't. Don't say that!
Director Erik Skybak brings us Revenge of the Boogeyman. And this is actually a sequel to the movie Beware the Boogeyman, which was actually an anthology movie a couple of years ago. And this one stars Calvin McCarthy, who I've actually reviewed a few films of his as a director. And I've chatted into a couple of times. But here he is a co-writer and a actor in this movie. Now, unlike the original Boogeyman movie, and this is not to be confused with the high-budget Boogeyman movie that came out a little while ago, this one is not an anthology as the first one was. It is a singular story. So, what is that story? It focuses on a group of friends who are going to a cabin in the woods because one of their friends, the actual character played by Calvin McCarthy, is a recovering addict. So they want to kind of put him in isolation so he can kind of go cold turkey with his drug and alcohol addiction. And whilst they are there, they are menaced by this boogeyman, the same character that was in all of the sections of the previous kind of anthology movie. And this boogeyman ain't playing around. He's a mean so-and-so. Anyway. And what will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let's discuss what works with Revenge of the Boogeyman. So, this is a low-budget film. I would even say it feels lower budget than the original movie, which was low budget. But there is a reasonable amount of fairly decent practical gore here. There's some pretty fun kills. It always feels weird when you say that, but you know what I mean. The first kill in the movie is, for example, the boogeyman stomps on someone's head and it doesn't cut away. You know, it's gloriously gory in that respect. I mean, it's you know, to a point, but it's you know, it's fairly well done. The boogeyman character himself kind of looks like one of the orcs from the kind of the Middle-earth movies that we've seen before. But it's a sort of a fun design. Looks like a kind of like deformed monk sort of style character. So the practical kind of makeup, the gore effects, you know, that sort of thing, again with the low budget caveat we have in place here, I thought was reasonable here. Now, the fact that this is a full-length feature with the same characters rather than the anthology movie like we had before gives us more time to get to know our characters. And interestingly, all the characters here have the same name as the actor that portrays them. So Calvin McCarthy's character is a character called Calvin, for example. So yeah, we get to know them a little bit, and it has a slightly more comedic edge to it than the original movie. The comedy is not like lots of gags and jokes, but it's kind of like a little bit of goofiness from the characters. So it has a lighter touch maybe than the kind of the original. That was a particularly serious movie, but you know, this one definitely has a goofier element to it. So you know, there is that. And let's be honest with you, I'm struggling to come up with much more on the positive angle here, because I have to be honest with you, I thought this film was actually a step down from the original. Here's the main problem. Okay, the original was an anthology film which had the same boogeyman character in each of the anthology stories, but it had different kind of setups with variety of characters and stuff, and slightly different kind of like way the story would play out. But it was all the same character. This feature-length movie, this story is no more complex than any of the segments in the previous anthology movie. There is there's little story here in regards to a narrative. There's no reason why this should be a feature-length movie, because nothing of note happens in regards to plot, twists, story elements, narrative threads, even character arcs. nothing really happens here that that couldn't have been done as a segment of an anthology. So the movie feels incredibly stretched out. But what is the running time all kind of filled with, you might be saying? Long, elongated scenes with characters being goofy and kind of like just sort of interacting without really forwarding any plot development. It is, I have to be honest with you, even, you know, I don't want to say the word torturous, but there's scenes here that just seemingly go on forever. Forever. It is amazing to me that this was decided to be like a feature length, when the previous movie was an anthology, but it offers nothing new. Instead, it just offers boredom. Maybe that's the other thing it offers new. As I say, with the previous movie being an anthology, little bite-sized stories, you kind of, you know, it never kind of spent, nothing was too kind of like complex, but you go out onto the next one. Here it just gets massively dragged out, and the only thing you do get more of is weird sort of like, air quotes, comedic tics from our sort of characters just goofing around. And like I said, this movie is comedic, but I wouldn't exactly say it's like a comedy which you're going to kind of laugh out loud from. The characters are depicted to be like kind of cartoonish. And so it's kind of like watching like really sort of juvenile style characters without really kind of much in the way of actual set-up jokes and funny gags and things like that. It's just characters acting like, you know, like goofs basically, and it's like, wow, totally invested in this movie. So it ain't good, unfortunately. The bulk of the running time here isn't good. We get the boogeyman pop up here and there, but I actually think they kind of even do him a disservice, because there's a couple of instances where you'll see him in kind of quite like well-lit situations, not all the time, but there are a couple, and it just doesn't look good. It just looks like a kind of cosplay sort of monk's costume with a kind of a prosthetic mask. Had they kept him to the shadows, the darkness, the kind of, you know, that sort of thing, which they did more so in the first movie, because, but it, you know, he would have created a little bit more ambience, but you know, it unfortunately deflates it, and there's a sequence towards the end where we have a conversation with the boogeyman, which again I think was misjudged, and it sort of deflates the sort of like the threat, if you like, and I have to be honest with, the acting isn't particularly strong. I mean, everyone's here is doing like a, as I say, a kind of goofier character, and so they're kind of playing this kind of like, you know, juvenile style sort of characters, but I've got to be honest with you, the actual characters as we watch them, they're not particularly likeable. They're over the top acting, which I think is probably by design, and yeah, I mean, no one really here is a character that you want to root for. No one here is a character that you particularly want to get to know, really. It's a real, unfortunately, step down from the original, which wasn't exactly like a stellar movie, but this one's, I have to say, it borders on being a little bit unwatchable, I have to say. And it's a shame, because I'd say I've chatted to Calvin McCarthy, and it's a nice guy. But this one, I've got to be honest with you, it's a 3 out of 10. And I give those points for, as they say, some of the kind of the practical gore and stuff and the VFX. And I do appreciate this is a low budget movie, but it really looks low budget as well. So yeah, it's a 3 out of 10 for me. This one, it's not very good. Sorry. Have you seen it? Have you seen the original? Please do let me know what your thoughts are, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.